one extra minute. We just have, Dee Dee's going to be walking into the room in a second, and I want to welcome everyone to our public hearing for the Community Services Block Grant. We're going to be hearing some testimony today from a few people. I want to just remind people of a couple of things before we start. One is that we have extended the time for written submission until August 1st. So if anyone out there did not have an opportunity to submit their written testimony, they are welcome to do so during the extended time period until August 1st. Also, this hearing is being webcast throughout the state. So in Buffalo, we have New York City, we're here in Albany, and also you will be able to watch it post today online at the New York State Department of State website. Before we continue, I want to introduce our secretary, who is a real leader in the nonprofit community and has embraced the Community Services Block Grant Community Action Agencies wholeheartedly and is a proud supporter of the work of the Community Action Agencies throughout New York State. He's here to share a few words.
The guy waving is the secretary.
And I'm just going to pass it on to him to take us through the opening, to say a few words.
Yes.
I need to know when we're on the record.
Yeah, you can start. We're going now on the record.
Tell me who you are.
My name is Cesar Perales, C-E-S-A-R P-E-R-A-L-E-S, and I am the Secretary of State of New York.
So we're officially on the record?
We're on the record. I am officially opening the hearing, and I just wanted a very few minutes to tell you how important I think this is, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, of course, is that this is the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty, and so that makes this a very special event. But something else, I think that the plan that we will be discussing today is extremely important. I think after too many years, we're finally beginning to see jobs being created in our state and in our country. And so we've also, those of us who've been reading the newspapers, know that we have, at the same time, a major issue with increased immigration once again to our nation. We were and continue to be very proud of what happened a little over 100 years ago when through Ellis Island we had millions of people pouring in from Europe, primarily from Europe. And at that time, these folks met enormous problems, but they were integrated into our society and helped make this the strongest, most powerful nation in the world. I think that we have another opportunity. So two things are happening simultaneously. We've got an opportunity to help the folks who have been unemployed get a job, which has got to be one of our focus as we continue to think about how we are advancing the community services block and how we're using that money. And the other, of course, is how we're going to integrate these newcomers. So I feel very strongly that the plan that we've put together does lead us in that direction. I'm very optimistic that we're going to get jobs all over the state. We see our unemployment rate going down consistently. So, and I think it's hit the level in which the folks served by our CAAs are finally going to get an opportunity to break into the job market. So I just wanted to share that with you. We think we've got a good plan. We hope we get good comments about it, and that we will, over the next 3 years, be very, very effective in fighting poverty as we've been doing for the last 50 years. With that, I'm going to say good luck and goodbye. Is that okay with you, Dee Dee?
Well, never goodbye. It's just until we meet again.
Until we meet again. All right. It's in your hands, Dee Dee.
It's very preposition, eh? Okay.
We'll start then, Dee Dee? Yes, with our first speaker from the New York State Community Action Association. You want to say your name, say the organization that you're from for the stenographer, and then you...
And I want to try to speak slowly enough so that they can understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying. My name is Carla DiGirolamo.
And before we go, just so everybody understands the way the format of today is going to work, it's testimony. We're going to listen to the testimony. And then, of course, you're encouraged, if there's questions that arise from the testimony, to send those questions to us in writing. And we'll make sure that we have a thorough review of both the testimony and any questions that any of you might have, and we respond to those appropriately. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Again, I'm Carla DiGirolamo. I'm the CEO of the New York State Community Action Association, KARLA-DIGIROLAMO. And as I say, I'm the CEO of the New York State Community Action Association. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and share our thoughts from NYSDOS and the thoughts of the New York State Community Action Network on the management plan for the Community Services Block Grant, and to talk a little bit more generally about the nature and challenges facing those of us who are providing services to low-income people in New York State. I want to start by making a particular thanks to the New York Department of State for its commitment to community action and for helping to ensure that issues affecting low-income New Yorkers are a priority for attention and support in New York. We, as Veronica said, recognize, respect, and truly appreciate the Secretary's long-term commitment, Assistant Secretary, and Veronica, who have been really strong supporters of our network and the work that we do. NYSDOS, as you probably know, is a nonprofit membership association representing the 49 community action agencies. We are also a direct recipient of CSBG funds through the Department of State Division of Community Services. We provide a range of training and technical assistance services on governance-related issues, program delivery and program services issues, information technology, fiscal, and a wide range of other issues as needs arise. And we facilitate the network's information sharing, peer mentoring, leadership development, and collaborative initiatives. We also coordinate the state and federal public policy, the networks, state and federal public policy, legislative, and media efforts. We're also very pleased that we're providing training and technical assistance for the state's Office of New Americans programs and Indian tribal organizations as they seek services. In 2013, NYSDOS provided training to approximately 2,000 people in events that range from small intensive services, technical assistance forums for a single agency, to large statewide and regional events, including a regional conference that we held in New Jersey, and we will be holding again for the Federal Region 2, and our annual symposium on poverty and economic security, which this year served as the kickoff for our From Poverty to Opportunity New York State Community Action Poverty Tour. As many of you were there, as you know, that Poverty Symposium also served as a kickoff for this poverty tour, and it featured the Nuns on the Bus creator, Sister Simone Campbell, Secretary Perales, and a number of other speakers, and really gave us a wonderful, inspiring way to honor the achievements, of community action and the work that's been done, and to rededicate ourselves to those efforts. In NYSDOS, as I said, we provide a range of training and services from both the governance to the program related, and we have in the last year worked hard to expand the kind of services we provide to include workshops that are useful for direct care and lower management staff, including things like workshops on trauma, understanding poverty, working with difficult people. We've developed an exciting new workshop on supervising an aroma environment and telling the story of poverty and community action. As you know, Community Action was a product of the War on Poverty and is a national network dedicated to fighting poverty through innovative services and community partnerships. For the past 3 years, in addition to the work that we do through our DOS contract, we have been the lead agency in the Federal Region 2 Performance and Innovation Consortium, which is a project of the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, in which we work with our Department of Services and the state lead agencies and associations and community action programs in the Federal Region 2 area, which is New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. We're very pleased to be able to have this opportunity to bring together in a collaborative way the work that we're doing in New York State with the work that's happening throughout our region, and therefore connecting to the work that's happening throughout the country. In the next grant period through this RPIC project, we'll be focusing on the implementation of the upcoming National Organizational Standards and the implementation of the Roma Next Generation Performance Management Standards. In 2013, as you know, 50 eligible entities were funded by CSBG funds. Of those 50, 48 were private nonprofit community action agencies. In New York, we have 2 public agencies that administer CSBG funds, the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development and Livingston County Planning Department. We're proud in the community action world to be innovators and leaders, providing flexible and responsive services to help low-income New Yorkers achieve economic stability and security. For 50 years, community action has been the frontline, community-based, federally designated anti-poverty network. We promote not only individual improvement, individual self-sufficiency and stability, but we really work to empower our communities to engage in economic development, and as we do with the individuals we serve, to really reach the maximum potential in both the individual level and the community level. We're a unique network in that we have a network that reaches every New Yorker, and we create a web of services across the state that creates a comprehensive service structure and delivery system that ensures that every family in every community in the state would have access to services. Community Action also employs thousands of New Yorkers, and in some communities we are the largest employer, and in many communities we're among the largest employers. We're therefore a vital part of the business community, as well as a provider of vital human services. The employees of community action agencies contribute to the communities they work, not only by spending money in those communities and being members of those communities, but really by bringing their efforts. Often our employees are volunteering throughout their community and bringing stability to their communities. So we're really proud of the work that the agencies do and of the impact we have on New York State. In 2012, the community action agencies leveraged the $59 million in community services block grant money they received to bring in a total of nearly $800 million in federal, state, local, and private resources. So we are an important economic driver as well as provider of services in communities. As I said, CSBG funds in New York State are administered by the New York State Department of State Division of Community Services. And again, I want to thank the Department of State, and I want to particularly thank the division for their support and advocacy for community action. As I mentioned, we are really grateful and honored to have Secretary Perales lead our network in New York State, given his historical commitment and continuing passion for this work. That passion from the NYSDOS perspective has been demonstrated as the Secretary and Veronica and other staff people have been willing to travel to the sites in which our poverty tour has been holding events, and they've been active participants in our events, which has been a really exciting opportunity for us to partner with the Department of State and to really showcase the partnership we have with the Department of State and the heartfelt commitment and support that we've received from our Department of State. And we really do genuinely appreciate so much that support for the work that we're doing. In addition to the ongoing work that we have been doing and that our agencies do to provide direct services and community development supports, in New York State, many of our communities have become among the first responders in natural disasters. And unfortunately, this is an expertise that we're increasingly being called on to demonstrate as extreme weather conditions seem to be becoming more commonplace. In the last 6 months alone, 3 of our upstate agencies have experienced deadly and devastating weather conditions hitting their communities that have led to devastation of housing. Some of our agencies have had their own offices and service facilities devastated. They have had their own families, their staff experience devastating effects of these weather conditions, and yet they've continued to provide direct services, even as they confronted these personal risks, these challenges to how they continue to do business when their own facility has been damaged. They provided the frontline services: food, water, clothes, shelter, and access to information about disaster relief and services. And some of our programs have developed, unfortunately in some ways, a tremendous expertise on disaster relief. And as I say, we think, unfortunately, we're going to be called on to use that expertise much more in the future. We're also very proud in Community Action of the unique governing structure we have, which is our tripartite board, which is a wonderful hallmark and strength of Community Action. Our tripartite board structures ensure that all segments of the community are heard in the process of developing community action services. And most importantly, they ensure that customers' voices inform and direct the services that we provide. We're also a unique system in that we engage in a process of community needs assessments routinely, so that we know, based on not only our own instincts and personal experiences, but based on data and information we're getting from community partners, from customers, from collaborators in the community, that the services that we provide actually are meeting community needs, and that we continue to evolve and adapt our services to meet those changing needs. Without the coordinated planning and support services provided by CSBG through the Community Action Network, New York would lose the locally governed public-private partnerships that are now the hallmark of the successful anti-poverty programs that Community Action runs. We in Community Action have a remarkable reserve of expertise and skills, and we're proud of the voice and the advocacy that we provide for low-income people who are all too often silenced and ignored in the dialogues and diatribes about poverty in the United States. As we've undertaken our poverty tour, we've highlighted the poverty and the challenges facing New Yorkers. But as I was preparing this testimony, I just wanted to make sure that I also mentioned that while we have spent a lot of time looking at the dark side in some ways of our communities, we have also had the opportunity once again to experience the beauty and the strength and the wonders of New York State. And as we have literally traveled, and Veronica has sort of followed this path from Canada to Long Island, from Ohio to Massachusetts, what we've seen is the remarkable diversity and wonders of this state. So I just felt like I wanted to mention that because I feel like we spend so much time talking about negative. And this state is a wonderful state, not only just in the land and the beauty, but in the remarkable diversity that the people bring to it. In those communities, though, we have found deep and desperate poverty. We've heard stories of great deprivation and loss. And we've seen how for many people, conditions right now are far beyond their control and are altering their lives and our economy in profound ways. So while I'm here today and in my testimony, I wanted to take the opportunity not only to address the management plan, but also just to highlight some of the critical problems affecting our low-income neighbors and the challenges that they're facing and that, frankly, middle and working class people are facing now to maintaining their precarious status. And I also want to talk a little bit about some bigger picture sort of challenges and opportunities that we see New York confronting now as we move toward the next 50 years of community action. As you all know, poverty remains a serious threat. In 2012, nearly 50 million Americans lived in poverty. And in 2013, nearly 3 million, or 15.6% of New York's residents lived in poverty, which means that we had the fourth largest number of people living in poverty, behind only California, Texas, and Florida. And even more disturbingly, over 40,000 New Yorkers worked full-time year-round and still lived in poverty. And over 22% of children in New York State live in poverty, with childhood poverty rates in the city of Syracuse, Rochester, Utica, Binghamton, and Buffalo more than 3 times the national rate. Across our state, 54% of our children are poor enough to qualify for free or reduced cost lunches. Clearly, poverty continues to challenge us. And the sheer data does not really tell you the story of the full impact of poverty. Children living in chronic poverty experience a high rate of chronic stress, instability, and food insecurity, and are at risk of experiencing adverse health impacts, learning challenges, and disabilities, including family disruption. The effects of poverty are long-lasting and profound on individuals and society. Research is increasingly telling us that poverty is a trauma, and that people, and particularly children who live in poverty, are living in environments of serious chronic stress and chronic trauma, and that this will have lifelong impacts if we do not find a way to intervene as early as possible with these affected children. We also know that not only does poverty continue to challenge us, but we are facing now a startling degree of income inequality and limited income mobility challenges, mobility, which challenges not only our economy, but really our democracy. According, as you know, to the United States Census, in 2010, The top 20% of Americans earn nearly 50% of the nation's income, while the bottom 15% earned only 3.4% of the nation's income. Gender and racial differences show even further inequalities and substantial numbers of people working full-time or wanting to work full-time and still living in poverty. Many other people have difficulties achieving full-time jobs and achieving self-sufficiency due to challenges such as transportation, childcare, and the frankly irrational nature of many of our public benefits, which often end abruptly as a person gets a job and is seeking to make their way to self-sufficiency. So we're proud of our work to promote economic and social change. We're proud of the work that we do to address not only the symptoms of poverty, but the conditions that contribute to poverty and economic stability. We in Community Action are proud of the innovators who are in our communities and the leadership that our communities have demonstrated. People who provide services, inspire, and lead change in their communities and their agencies. Community Action's work is community-focused, need-based, outcome-driven, accountable, and transparent. The promise and spirit of Community Action demand that high-quality, effective, and efficient services are provided in an atmosphere of respect, dignity, and empowerment. And we strongly support the Department of State's efforts to ensure that low-income people in New York State receive the highest quality services in the most appropriate and dignified setting possible. As I mentioned, in recent years, New York State has been hit with many extreme and devastating weather events, and we are really proud of how quickly and how comprehensively our agencies have responded, staying there as long as people needed to continue to receive the services that they could provide. Community action agencies are unique in the human services world in being outcome-focused, transparent, and accountable in a really important way, I think. And again, when I originally came to Community Action less than 3 years ago, I was very much impressed with the commitment that we have to rigorous transparency and accountability. And it makes me very proud to be part of a network that is so committed to ensuring quality and transparency in our services. In terms of the current management plan, it assumes that funding for FFY 2015 will be at the same level as for 2014, providing funds to the existing community action grantees, which are 48 nonprofit community action agencies and the 2 public CAPs. The plan did note that the Newburgh Community Action Committee funding was terminated in January 2014, and we're very pleased that a new RFP was issued so that those services will continue to be provided in a high quality and appropriate way. 90% of those funds are directed to eligible entities, with, as you know, the remaining going for state administration, tribes and tribal organizations, and discretionary programs, including special projects, training and technical assistance, emergency services, and disaster relief. Training and technical assistance in the management plan will be provided to help eligible entities meet the national organization standards and performance management standards in Roma Next Generation, and to help agencies with capacity building activities and responses to corrective actions and weaknesses or vulnerabilities that may exist in those programs. When the organizational standards are implemented and finalized by the Health and Human Services Office of Community Services, DOS contracts will require that all eligible organizations meet all applicable standards. Remaining discretionary funds may be made available for those other purposes. We're very pleased that the Department of State is developing a management plan that allows us to walk sort of hand in hand with the federal effort, and that allows us to ensure that we are engaging in an integrated process of supporting and implementing those national standards, which once again will help us ensure that we're providing high quality services. The management plan affirms a commitment to identify and resolve issues that may put an agency at risk, and to develop a corrective action plan and provide the resources and support where necessary to correct the identified weaknesses. And we very much appreciate and support that perspective. In looking at this management plan and to the future, we had a few suggestions and concerns that we wanted to raise and offer for consideration by the department. CSPG funds support the administrative costs needed to run a community action agency. We're very appreciative of that in our network. While this is not specific to your management plan, we and you are aware that other state contracts do not do so. Many other state contracts provide no administrative support or very, very limited administrative support, leaving our agencies to either put additional pressure on their CSBG funds or pressure to find other ways to fill the hole that's left by the lack of those administrative funds. We would encourage the state to provide an adequate and consistent administrative allocation to support the administrative and management services needed to run a high-quality organization. We would also ask the Department of State to, whenever possible, provide grantees with sufficient notice and turnaround time for the preparation and submission of information, reports, contracts, and things such as the CSBG management plan. We understand the constraints on your time, and we respect those constraints, and we also know that you understand the constraints, particularly on the time and resources of our community action agencies. And we want to do the best job possible and would very much appreciate as much turnaround and notice time as we can so that we are giving to you the highest quality, most thoughtful work that we can produce. As funding for community action services has gotten tighter and more difficult to access, our services have been scrambling to find ways to fill those holes. And it's increasingly difficult to find funding for social services and community-based programs. Our community action agencies would ask that DOS take a look at the extent to which you can direct discretionary funds to help current grantees meet the many needs that have been identified and that are unable to be met with current resources. The statewide network of community action agencies also notes the importance of ensuring that we have continued input into the funding and delivery of the training and technical assistance services, and encourages DOS to continue to support the work of NYSDOS and the community action agencies and the collaborative work that we have been doing with DOS and the network to develop a training and technical assistance agenda. Regarding the corrective action
Excuse me, this is the reporter. You're going extremely fast. I'm having a lot of trouble.
I'm sorry.
I need you to slow down a lot. I should have told you much earlier.
I was quite impressed, actually. They were keeping up with me. I'm sorry. Regarding the corrective action, termination, and reduction of funding discussed on page 15 of the plan, as I said, NYSDOS supports the commitment to a clear and fair process to ensure early identification of vulnerable programs and a process for offering support to assist those programs in correcting deficiencies and working toward program stability and best practice. This process should include TNTA from providers who are knowledgeable and experienced in working with community action agencies and who are committed to the strength and vitality of the network. We also want to support and encourage the continuation of a perspective on providing that training and technical assistance, wherein programs that seek to improve their practice or who self-identify weaknesses are able to request and access training and technical assistance in a manner that promotes program improvement without putting those programs at risk of being identified as vulnerable or weak programs because they're seeking help. We also would like to support the importance of the continuing work of the CSBG Advisory Council as a critical forum for providing input and sharing information about community action and the CSBG process. We would like to request that information from these meetings be shared with the network so that the network has the opportunity to see the work that's being done by this advisory council and to have an understanding of the collaboration and the good work that that council is doing. We also have identified over the last couple of years, and I think particularly as other resources have gotten tighter, that our services, our programs are increasingly looking for training for direct care and frontline staff. We have worked to fill those needs, and we're really proud that we have developed a number of trainings for frontline and direct care staff, but our resources are incredibly limited, as they all are, and we would very much appreciate any opportunity to explore or access additional funds for training for those frontline workers to ensure that we're building capacity at our programs from the sort of frontline level on up to the management and executive level. In terms of other sort of general concerns, as you know, the implementation of the Governor's Executive Order on Minority and Women's Business Enterprises has been a challenge for some of our agencies. I need to say very clearly that DOS has been forthcoming, clear, and rational in their application of the MWBE requirement. We feel that we understand what DOS wants and that we're able to meet those requirements, and we really appreciate that. We have to say, however, that other agencies have not communicated or have communicated confusing and inconsistent information. And I have to note that this has been a particular challenge with weatherization contracts and continues to be a challenge. We appreciate the work that the department, and particularly Veronica, has done to help us try to bridge this gap, but there remains a very serious inconsistency in how this requirement is interpreted and implemented, and any effort to make that consistent would be greatly appreciated. We also want to make note of the grants gateway system and its promises to bring significant efficiency to the New York grant making process, which we wholeheartedly support and think is a fabulous idea. The initial phase, as you all know, has included some challenges. Many of them appear to be resolved, but we do know that a number of our agencies continue to experience problems with the pre-qualification process. So we urge the state to pay ongoing attention to this new system as it goes to full capacity to ensure that we're able to successfully navigate it and that it brings the efficiencies as predicted. But again, we really think this is a great idea and a wonderful initiative, and we'll do anything that we can to support it. Finally, many people in New York State's network have advocated for the creation of a Commission on Poverty and Economic Security to promote a focused effort, cross-agency effort, to address poverty across state agencies. And we would encourage the state to consider that, that initiative again. We would look to that initiative to help us address a wide range of issues that are cut across our agency, ranging from work and employment supports to the need to improve our public benefit and support systems. For example, in the public benefit arena, to help ensure that once a person gets a job, they don't fall off of that benefit cliff. So I've gotten a job, and very quickly now I'm making less money, and I have fewer resources, and I've lost my food stamps, and I've lost my Medicaid, and it's creating tremendous challenges. So we would be very happy and encourage the state to sit down, create an interagency capacity to sit down and take a look at those benefits and those benefit structures. I understand that all of them are state generated, but to see what we can do to really support those efforts of people who do want to get jobs, do want to move towards self-sufficiency, but are often faced with a terrible dilemma of earning less and being less able to support their families because they've taken a job. It's a critical challenge, and we would encourage the state to work with us, the Department of State, to begin to talk about ways that we can solve that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. We look forward to working with the Department of State and the division over this next year and into the future to help address the issue of poverty in New York State. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we have the next speaker, I'd also like to mention that there's an extension of time to submit written comments on the CSBG management plan, and that extension is until the close of business on August 1st, 2014.
Who is that?
Next to speak is Venice Irvin, Program Director, Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency.
Actually, she's going to do the speaking, but outside.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
If you could just restate your name and...
Venice Irvin.
Do you need a few minutes? We just got you coming in the door.
Well, we're so used to it being at other place, but we finally made it here. We made it here in time. That's what we were worried about.
Okay. Are you ready, or do
Yes,
you need
I'm
a
ready.
few minutes? Okay.
I'm ready.
All right.
Let me get over here.
Yeah, right here is perfect. If you just
Hi.
we'll add her right there, and
I'm sorry, I'm Yvonne Irvin.
I'm Venice Irvin. This is Yvonne Irvin. We're from Mohawk Valley Community Action.
Say your name
Agency.
slowly, please.
the
Venice Irvin.
And I'm Yvonne Irvin from Mohawk Valley Community Action Agency.
Mohawk what?
Valley
Mohawk.
Community Action Agency.
And if you could paste your comments in such a way, as you can tell, there is a stenographer, so
Yes.
if you're like me, I tend to talk really, really fast, and we
Yeah.
have to go a little slower for her.
Gotta get going.
Okay.
Well, we're here to talk about what CSBG does for our agency. We've hired a staff through CSBG, and we have what we call a Getting Ahead program and a Just Getting By world. And we teach a 12-week program helping people to understand the hidden rules of poverty, to find out what their resources are, and to make them sustainable with their financial literacy, and to build a better place for their families. So we've hired a full-time person, and we've had 6 programs so far with at least 8 people graduating from each program. We have testimony from people that have come in, and they've gotten their GED through this program. They've obtained a job, and they're going on and they become facilitators. We train them to facilitate the next group. So we do this and we try to give them a stipend, but it really makes a difference in our area because we have so many low-income people, and we have a population that speaks 42 different languages in our school district. So we try to break down the barriers that people are going through to try to get out of poverty. So this program is really important, and CSBG really supports that. And as I was standing out and I was listening to the testimony, we're always trying to get people out of poverty. We're always trying to understand low income, but we need to understand that low income people need to find out and learn about the rules when they come out of poverty. It's one thing to give a person a job, but if they get a job and then the Department of Social Service doesn't support them and there's no resources for them, then what happens? We're the agency that tries to fill in that gap, to try to give them the resources, to try to make them understand when you go from low income to middle classes, things change. And I think sometimes we forget that. We say if we get them a job, then they're okay. If we get them education, then they're okay. But that's not always the point. The point is sometimes how do you navigate going from low income to middle income? That's a big struggle in our area. We have a lot of single mothers. We have programs where single mothers have to make the choice between, am I going to go back to school and get my services cut, but I know if I get education, then I get a better job, or do I continue to stay on county assistance? And what do I do and who's going to help me? So we have those programs that support that mission. We have a lot of young people. We have middle-aged people. We have people, as I say, the face of poverty has changed. We have people that are coming to us for assistance that have never had to ask for any sort of help. And this is all new to them. So we like to do a program where we explain to them we need to help them navigate where they have to get services. We navigate where they can get daycare. We navigate where they can get, we have On Point College. We work with Mohawk Valley Community Action College, and they have a program called On Point. People that never thought they can go to college, now they have a chance. They give them mentors. We have a collaboration with them to help people get their education.
One of the greatest things that we've ever done, both Yvonne and I are both certified bridges trainers, and we taught the first 2 Getting Ahead sessions for our agency. But we had SUNY Institute of Technology actually called us, one of the professors, and wanted us to come up and teach a Getting Ahead class up at the college. And we did that during the first semester of 2013, 2014. And it was probably the most different thing that I've ever done because when you have answers, you're asking questions in the community in sessions we were doing, you get entirely different answers when you're talking to students. I mean, all of their answers were entirely different. And it threw us for a loop sometimes how they felt about poverty and where they felt they were going, even though some of the students had grew up in poverty. And it was really rewarding to be able to teach them and to get them going and talking about the different things. One of the highlights of what we do through the CSBG money is we try to bring people from the different economic classes, the 3 economic classes together to speak. That's really the meat of what we do, is try to bring people from the wealthy economic class, the middle economic class, and the low income middle class together to talk about poverty, which is something that, you know, hasn't really been done, and it needs to be done more, where we're getting objective feedback from all 3 classes. And the one time that we did have a couple wealthy people in our sessions a couple times, and to hear some of the comments they made, you know, was unbelievable. They felt offended. Some of the middle class people felt offended, some of the low end. But it's a conversation. That's what it is. We're having that conversation now with all three economic classes. And I think that's what our agency is trying to do now, is make sure we get everybody to the table to talk about it, because there's so many different opinions out there that it's really, you know, upsetting sometimes to hear what some people really think about low-income people and what some people might feel about the wealthy class of economic class. It's really tough sometimes for people to understand that it's not as bad as what they think. I mean, so bringing them together like that, talking to them, talking to students and talking to the people that we're talking to, we're finding out a lot of things that's going to help us at Morrow Valley Community Action Agency serve our residents better and our community better. So
one of the main things that we talk about is a lot of people have a misconception that people that are low income or in poverty are lazy. But when we do getting ahead and we start talking about, you have a mother that has 3 children that she's married and she's working 2 jobs and her husband's working 2 jobs. Community people need to hear that. They need to know where their money is going, and it's not just that you're just giving and giving. There needs to be an outcome, and that's our goal, to show outcomes. I know a lot of times when we do grants, it's like, what are the outcomes? What are the goals? Are they attainable? And we really try to do that. We do a pre-course questionnaire. What do you think poverty is? What are the main causes of poverty? Do you consider yourself to be in poverty? You'll be surprised how many people think they're not in poverty, or how many people think they're wealthy. But when you start talking about it and you do your income, your debt to income ratio, you find out that a lot of people in poverty are spending most of their money trying to find a safe, affordable home. Or they want a cell phone, and then if you ask somebody that's wealthy, well, what do you think about that? And the answer is, well, why do they need a cell phone if they're not doing anything? Well, they need a cell phone to make doctor's appointments sometimes, to find out where their children are, to make sure that people can get in touch with them. So we use that CSBG money to keep our program going, to keep these trainings going, and to bridge that gap between low income and wealthy. Because of one of the valuable resources is that if you know somebody that knows somebody, sometimes that helps you get out of poverty. If you know someone that has a job and there's a job opening, you have a better chance of getting in there than anyone else. If you look at statistics, police officers become police officers because somebody in their family was a police officer. Firemen are the same way. So we want to make that bridge, to bridge that gap between low income and their opportunities. You know, we want them to be successful. We want them to be financially sustainable. We're not trying to give them a handout, but we need to give them tools to reach where they need to be. Not according to where we think they should be, but what's good for them. And so that's what we try to do. That's why we really need our CSBG money. And we talk about, you know, I heard Carlos talking about the minority and business-owned businesses. We talked about that yesterday, and I think the process, you know, I think that's a roadblock for everyone. But we have people that own businesses, but the process for them to become registered is so long and so intrusive that most minorities don't want to go through the steps. And that's a roadblock. It's not that they're not legitimate. They have licenses, they have insurance, but the process to get there is intimidating. So, you know, being a minority and a woman, one thing is a strike right there. You're already intimidated. So to do a process where you have to give all your information plus pay money to be registered, that is very intimidating. So if we can get some help on how to get that information out to make that process easier, I think that would help a lot of the agencies find the things that are needed for CSBG. So I thank you for your time and for this space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't know if we do questions. I'm so used to being at the other one.
We are not doing questions,
Okay.
but what we will do is if you have any questions that you would like to submit at any time, we'll do our best to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, for the record, should I go through people that are attending and not speaking? Should I go through this?
I don't think you.
No?
I don't think you need to go through that, but you might want to
Open it up?
invite open it up for each
I just
each
didn't
room
know
and
if
see if
we
anybody's
needed-
interested in.
I didn't know if we needed any of this on the record.
No, well, you can mention that we're recording all the people who,
Okay.
we'll have that list and it'll be available as a public document
Okay.
should someone want to see it.
In addition to the people that are in attendance today, several people have submitted written comments, and those will be available for all to review as well. Those are the three people that had indicated they would be attending and providing testimony today, but I'd like to open it up to anyone else that would like to provide testimony, and we'll start in New York City. Is there anyone that would wish to provide testimony today?
No, there's no one in New York City.
Thank you. Buffalo? Is there anyone that would wish to say anything?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. Anyone here in Albany that would like to say anything or provide any testimony? Okay.
Can I just ask a question, just to make sure I had the date right? The extension for written comments, August 1st?
August 1st,
I can let folks know.
2014.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and there'll be an email going out, and we're gonna post on the website,
Super.
saying that right where the plan is posted.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today, and we look forward to more written comments, but this is the conclusion of this hearing today. Thank you.